start with the why. We are always in this trying to exercise this muscle of the action and going for the action, going directly for what is the outcome, but contextualizing, having our direction connected to a business reason is something that takes some exercise.
Hi, before we get to this week's podcast, I'd like to tell you that Automated Creative are releasing a book called How to Make It in Marketing, Volume 1. It is a collection of the best marketing career advice we've had from over 200 episodes of the Shiny New Object podcast. You'll hear from some of the biggest, brightest and best names in the industry telling you how to grow your career. You can reserve yourself a copy at this URL. So get your pens out. It's bit.ly, so bit.ly/make it in marketing. So that's bit.ly/make it in marketing. But the make it in marketing bit is in capital letters. So bit.ly/lowercase and the rest is make it in marketing uppercase. I think you should get your heads around that. And enjoy. It's a great read. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a weekly podcast about the future of the advertising and marketing industry. I get to interview someone who's very senior, clever, influential, and this week's no different. I'm on a call with Thiago Gomes, who's product marketing lead EMEA at Meta. Thiago, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you give the audience a bit of background?
Tom, how are you? Very nice to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. So my name is Thiago. As you probably can hear from the accents, I'm not from here. I'm originally from Brazil, and I started my career, my path over there. So started my career always in advertising agencies at the beginning. The first third of my career, always in advertising agencies, especially creative agencies, but working always on the business side. So making the relationship between the agency and clients to happen and for the business to progress. So a few independent agencies in Brazil, but I also had a moment at Ogilvy as well with our international business over there. And when I was at Ogilvy, was the exact year, was in 2011, was the exact year that Meta was, or Facebook at the time, was starting its operations in Latin America. So I was lucky enough to be part of the first batch of hires that we had there in the region. Part of the first group of like 5-7 employees that joined the company. And I started my path at the company on the sales department, so taking care of advertisers, mostly in e-commerce and retail, still in Brazil. Then as that operation progressed, I moved into a product marketing role for Latin America and US Hispanics. So doing the whole America's product marketing role for ads. And back in 2017, I got the opportunity to do my first international movement with Meta, which was to execute pretty much the same role that I was having Latam, but now for EMEA and sitting in France, in Paris, France. So moved there, stayed there for almost 5 years. And then I got an opportunity to move again. Now here in the UK, based out of London, and taking care of a very experienced, very senior team that covers some areas of our advertising business, but mostly focus on foundational areas for our performance marketing path. So things related to signals growth, to ads integrity, regulations, privacy, targeting, delivery, automation, all the fun topics around this universe. So a long journey, 12 years in this company so far. But a journey with the opportunity to explore several different roles and also several different regions, which was super nice for me.
Right. I have a very, very high expectation of this podcast now, Thiago, for that introduction. So in that career, what has been the best investment of your own time, energy, or money?
Maybe it transparency in when you go through the CV it's something that I try to do a lot intentionally, but it is to kind of combine professional and personal experiences together. I think for me, this was always something that was super important. And for me, something that I try to be always very intentional about. So almost, and don't get me wrong, but almost being a little bit selfish in a sense on thinking about, okay, I'm going for the role. I'm going to support the company on this direction, but I also want to use this opportunity to have something that the company will never take away from me. So it's something that I looked after on this path. And for me, a big investment of time and energy was always on trying to find this job opportunity that would also pay out with personal experiences. So all these international movements, the opportunity to work with very different people from all over the world, they were always a big focus. They kind of brought to me the possibility to match the career aspirations that I have with some of the life aspirations that I have as well. So yeah, help me to be the person that I wanted to be. It's not easy, right? It's been over 8 years that I don't have a place on earth anymore because it's always moving from one region to the other, one country to the other. It has a load in my family as well, obviously, but overall, when we do the math, it's being super positive.
So that's great life and work advice. But do you have a marketing tip that you can share with the audience? Something that you find yourself quoting most often? And
if you don't mind, I have two, and they should be very straight to the point. But yeah, no, they are.
Come on, then. Let's do it.
They are things that can be very obvious when you hear, but for me, they have important effect. I had two leaders in the business in the last few years, and the two of them, they said things that they had the sense of being logical at first, but very powerful at the back end. The first one is always start with the why. And for marketing, this was something that for me always resonated so much, because we are always in this trying to exercise this muscle of the action and going for the action, going directly for what is the outcome, but contextualizing, having our direction data backed, having our direction connected to a business reason is something that takes some exercise. So starting with the why for me is something that, since I heard that, I took for myself, and I try not to do. I tried not to go to any pitch or any conversation without starting with the why first. And the other one is very recent advice from one of the leaders that we have in the business, but something that is resonating a lot to me, which is marketing organizations to essentially focus on two things: either grow and protect revenue, or save time from our cross-functional teams. And again, very obvious, very direct to the point. But when I read through the details of it, I always think about a marketing organization that is first data driven. We have the business outcomes being more important than any proxies, especially when you think about advertising. Proxies can be very strong. So when you think about the business outcomes that it's going to have, it's something that resonates a lot to me. A market organization that is focused on revenue generating marketing, especially in moments like now that we have like businesses tightening up. Marketing can be seen as an expense, but when you're focused on growing and protecting revenue, you are a revenue generating area. So this is something that is crucial. So data-driven, revenue-generating, focused on prioritization, and essentially an area that connects the technical side of the company with the business side of the company. So for me, two very strong tips that I take with myself.
And well done for getting 2 tips into this podcast. Thank you.
Cool.
So
bonus points.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. We're now going to talk about your shiny new object, which is diversity. So big topic, still very much a shiny new object in terms of conversation, in terms of the press and different brands, different businesses adopting it in different ways at different times with different amounts of success. But why is diversity your shiny new object?
So important, a few aspects, and I know it's a broad subject, so I'll try to condense a little bit more into the specifics. But I think the overall aspect is very obvious, right? We have data backing up. We have UN data that says that diverse organizations, they outperform individuals in decision making by almost 90%. We have data that says that diversity boosts productivity overall in over 35%. So it is proven that it works. But more than that, this brings key aspects, right? Better exchange between teams, better understanding of our customers in general, different work ethics across the board, and we bring also different decision making and different approach to problem solving. So, in short, is a core mechanism for driving innovation and for driving resolution. And I think that's a topic that is quite hard to argue against, right? But for me, why it's important at this moment to speak about it is because we're going through a moment that is very challenging and quite problematic for diversity and inclusion efforts. Sorry about that. And why it's very problematic. I think, first of all, we have an overall aspect of crisis, right? We have inflation, recession, companies tidying up. So they are all factors that are making business needs take more overall measures for efficiency. So this is the first red alert, that we have there. Next to that, we also have a large layoff season going on across many industries. The tech industry, which is the one that I work at during the last 12 years, but also in the finance industry, in the VC community, most recently in the consulting environment as well. A bunch of situations of mass layoffs that are also a moment that is critical for a lot of business. And the attention point that I have there is that these moments they can be specifically harmful for diverse communities. And I see three aspects, if you allow me to go through three aspects on that. First of all is the structural challenge itself, right? Moments like those that we are living in, they make harder for this community to wait for key opportunity. If someone within a diverse community not having a backup, or a family backup, not having the conditions to wait more for the right opportunity, having historically getting their opportunities challenged by this ecosystem, like this already puts a structural challenge that makes things harder. So I think that's the first aspect. There's a second aspect, which is the practical aspect itself. This process that are happening, they naturally exclude diverse communities from the market. Giving core examples, B1 visa holders in the US. We have skilled worker visas here in the UK. Once the companies let those people go, they will naturally not be a part of this market anymore. And finally, I would say situations like this one that we are living in, they reduce the impact of core measures that we have to reduce the issue. So D&I programs, they might be seen as a cost, so they might be reduced or removed. Conscious hire is a massive effort or a massive mechanism for mitigating this issue. With less hiring, we are having less entry points for people in the diversity community as well. So to try to summarize, I would say, I think this moment that we are going through puts a lot of extra challenges to the situation.
So, in your experience, what are the best things that people can do to really get their diversity efforts up to a level that they can be proud of? Because we see a lot of talk in the industry, a lot of people like virtue signaling. But what I loved about what you said was the stats. I can't remember them all that you gave at the start. This works, right? And that kind of stat wasn't in the press like 4 or 5 years ago when diversity really came to the forefront. Maybe it's not as far back as that, but now that you've been in and around it and running a diverse team and seen the benefits and seen the science, the stats, give some advice to someone who is struggling with this. Where's a good place to start? What are those key things that they can get going?
Okay, so a few things that are I think they can help solving the issue, right? The situation. First of all, it's acknowledgement, right? You spoke a little bit about that. It is not only nice for the world, but it's also good for business. I personally. To share a personal anecdote on that, I come from a very different work ethic culture, and the amount of learning or amount of adaptation that I had to have, both when I started to work with the US and now working with the different cultures that we have within EMEA, for me was a big change on my day-to-day and allow me to take different directions on problem solving. So if companies acknowledge that this thing that happened to me can happen on a large scale and help the structure, help the business to progress, I think it's a great first step, acknowledgement. The second step, I kind of mentioned very quickly, but this idea of investment versus cost. It is not efficient to cut on diversity efforts. And this efficiency in this case can translate in many situations. But for me, extension of remote work, this allows diverse communities to better be placed in the market. Efforts around internal education, internal training, they also help to reduce bias. They help to raise the awareness that I mentioned about the acknowledgement. They help with integration. So all those things that can be seen as cost, they need to be seen as investments. There is the fairness aspect as well. Fairness on promotions, fairness on raises, fairness on opportunities. If this is inputted in the company mindset, this is a core direction to go. And finally, lead by example. I'd say the reference is super important. To give another personal example, whenever I see a Latin leader across a multinational company, even if I don't know the person, I feel proud. And I can see myself on that. So see diversity in leadership is also key. So I'd say if we have a little bit of these 4-ish elements included as a core mindset for companies, I think we have a good basis, a good foundation.
And to finish off, what are the biggest mistakes that you've seen?
A very nice question. I think the biggest of all is to use this exercise to use this topic not as a not as a legitimate direction for the company, but as an exercise of use it as a marketing exercise. And this doesn't flow too far. This doesn't go too far. I think this is the worst example, because you do the activities not from the core. You do the activities just to show externally, and it's easily seen. Doesn't help people that are involved on it, and doesn't bring the benefits that we spoke a little bit about at the beginning of the conversation. So, if companies are up for it, it's better. It's for a core reason, not because they want to collect brand or marketing benefits out of that.
That's a very important lesson to share at the end of the podcast. Unfortunately, we need to leave it there. Thiago, thank you for sharing your views in what I felt was a really passionate way and very clear and easy to understand. And it was an education to me. So thanks for that. But I imagine there's a bunch of people who want to talk more to you about this. So how can someone get in touch with you? What platform?
Yeah.
What makes it the perfect message to you?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time and the attention. I think the best way is through LinkedIn. So Thiago Gomes, Thiago, Gomes with an S at the end. And I'll be more than happy to chat and answer any questions that you have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Thiago.
Cool. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi. Just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That'd just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.